What's up, cool kids, and welcome back. Another week, another episode. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're doing excellent, and thank you for coming and tuning in to the second episode of the Langston Fraser Show podcast. If you're new here, welcome to the show. My name is Langston Fraser. I am your host. This is a golf-related podcast where we get to hear some of the most interesting stories affecting the game of golf from both inside and outside the golf industry, featuring some of golf's up-and-coming names. If you didn't check out last week's episode, which was season 2, which was the premiere with my good friend Will Scott, I highly suggest you check that out. We covered a whole bunch of ground. If you're into broadcasting, that episode is definitely for you. We caught up on a whole bunch of things, kind of his career as a whole right now. So go check that out. But this season, like we've been saying all along, we got some great guests lined up for you. Let me know who you want to hear from in the suggestions. But this week's guest is none other than Maurice Allen. Another fantastic week of sports, but let's check out some of my favorites in this week TLFS Pod Sports Update. The Washington football team beats the Steelers, ending their perfect season 11-0, winning 23-27. The Washington football team is now tied with the Giants for the lead of the NFC East at 5-7. Crazy game. Blocked pass by quarterback of the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, basically recovered the ball and held out and made a really good field goal from about 46 yards to end the game. Incredible way it finished, and I'm super proud of the Washington football team for kind of sticking in there. Now we're on the top of the leaderboard in our division. Let's hope it stays there, and it might be a really wacky record to get to the playoffs, but I hope it stays and I hope they get there. If you're a fan of politics, you most likely watch the election coverage on election night on MSNBC. If you're a fan of that network, Steve Kornacki, who is a political kind of correspondent and reporter, basically sits at this big board and calculates numbers. And he was basically there 3 or 4 or 5 nights after the election, just pounding and crunching numbers, and really kind of came this national figure for election nights. But he had the super cool opportunity this past Sunday to go on Football Night in America to kind of crunch the numbers to see who's going to make it into the playoffs. That was super cool for him to do and to see on TV. So if you haven't checked it out, it's all on the internet. Definitely go check it out. Steve Kornacki, hilarious guy. Russell Westbrook is now in DC after being traded after just one season with Houston Rockets. He is now going to switch his number from his most popular number 44 to number 4. Basketball gets underway on December 22nd. And in golf news, Angela Stanford wins the Volunteers of America Classic in her native Texas. She played at TCU, so congrats to her. And these guys are just on a roll. It's incredible. They just got out of school like a year ago, but Victor Hovland wins the last PGA Tour event of the year with the victory on the final hole to win the 2020 Mayakoba Golf Classic, nearly winning $1.3 million. And so, you have Victor Hovland, Matty Wolff, and Colin Morikawa all up in the top 15, and they just got out of school. So congrats to Victor Hovland on his incredible win, and we'll see what happens next season. In some unfortunate news, the voice of golf, Peter Alliss, passed away on Sunday. He was a great player and a commentator in Britain, covering a wide range of golf events over many years, and was inducted into the Golf Hall of Fame in 2012. So my condolences to his family and his fans as well. He will be missed. And in some major news, the U.S. Women's Open is taking place this week in Houston, Texas. Lexi Thompson has Bryson DeChambeau caddy on the bag, Tim Tucker, which is super cool. As we all know, Bryson DeChambeau won the U.S. Open. We'll see if Lexi Thompson can get it done and see if it will be the big piece to kind of help her through and get out the victory. Her most recent finish at this event was T2, which was last year. But let's just put this into perspective. This is Lexi Thompson's 14th appearance in the US Open. And for all your latest news in golf in the world of sports, visit golfchannel.com and NBC Sports. So I'm not going to hold you guys any longer, but this guy really doesn't need an introduction. He's incredibly cool, and if you haven't seen him and you haven't heard of him before you heard this interview, you're definitely going to know about him after. Definitely go check him out. I'm sitting down with this week's guest, 2018 Volvic World Long Drive champion Maurice Allen, right after we hear from our sponsors at Anchor. And with that, let's dive into episode 2 of The Langston Fraser Show. All right, Maurice Allen has been a member of the World Long Drive community since 2010, smashing records left and right since the moment he stepped on tour. Also, he's one of the most entertaining and outgoing athletes on the tour. He's been outspoken about issues that he's passionate about, just bringing awareness to a whole bunch of great issues across the board, from golf to social injustice to boys and girls clubs, to kind of inspiring the youth. But most of all, he's a giver, and he takes absolutely nothing for granted. Maurice Allen, welcome to the Langston Fraser Show, my friend.
Thanks, Big Al. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well in this kind of quarantine, kind of COVID-19 era that we're kind of dealing with. I know things have kind of stopped for you on the World Long Drive stage of things. So you're not really competing competitively as we typically see you guys on the big stage. But how have been things going for you in Orlando?
Not bad, man. Just doing, family time, family stuff, letting the body heal. I don't know. I've been going probably 8, 9, 10 years nonstop. So nice to actually have the opportunity to let the body heal and not miss any events. So spent really a lot of this time just letting the body get healthy, most importantly, so that when it is time to compete again, I'd be ready to go. So that's really been my focus over the last few months.
Blessing in disguise, I would say, if kind of a hard stop and no kind of competitive juices flowing per se.
Yeah. I mean, there are more important things to focus on during this time. So I just decided to do that instead.
Nice. So I typically start the show, as you know, kind of getting to know where people are from. And I typically like to do it this way. Tell me where you're from, where you're originally from, I should say, and describe it in 3 words. And why would you use those 3 words?
Let's see. Where am I from originally? I'm from Pine Hills, Florida, which is I guess, suburb of Orlando. How would I describe it? Um, Home. uh, Man, 3 words. Yeah, just home, comfort, and uh, potential. Yeah,
Potential?
that's yeah. I
That's a,
mean, it's an area that if you look at the history of the area, it was a place that wasn't what it is today. Kind of similar to when you look in LA, you look at Compton. Compton originally was a Jewish community that when people moved out of the inner city and moved away from the city into the suburbs, it became what Compton is now. But unfortunately, a lot of times we get a lot of bad raps with a lot of these neighborhoods where a lot of Black people live. So the reason why I say potential is because, the things we're working on right now are trying to reclaim what I call our streets, trying to get to a position where we have power in our own neighborhoods, where businesses aren't able to come in and do whatever they want to do. We have a little more say so in the type of businesses that come into our neighborhoods, getting rid of the check cashing in the liquor stores and getting more banks and things of that nature. Small business owners having the opportunities to thrive and flourish in our community, and then getting people to support those small business owners because those are the same people that live in the community. So really trying to keep the dollar in within the community, and I think that's the potential that my neighborhood has.
And you mentioned a good fact. You talk about your community and trying to let it grow and get out of the stereotypes that people put it in the box that it's in. Um, Something that's kind of cool that you've kind of had the opportunity to do is kind of be involved in the Boys and Girls Club of Orlando and also having your own day in the city of Orlando. Tell us about that opportunity.
Growing up, man, I was a part of the Boys and Girls Club. I was Youth of the Year. It was a little different in my generation. That's kind of where everybody went to hang out. At one point, there were more cars in the parking lot from people who were there than there were from people working there. The kids actually that were going there. At some points, and especially in today's culture, kids kind of, when they get to the age of driving, they stop going to the Boys and Girls Clubs. For some reason, for us, man, the Pine Hills Boys and Girls Club was just a cool place to hang out. That's where everybody went. So it was a little different. So that played a big part in my life in making sure that I talked to the kids who were in that same area, in that same community, in that same club, but also helping kids understand nationally what the club can do. Every time I go on a long drive or golf tournament, I make sure that I stop by the local Boys and Girls Club in that area and just try to talk to them and explain to them where life can take them. Why is that important? Um, then the day, honestly, man, I still don't know how I got my own day in this. I can't even lie to you. It's kind of cool just from the standpoint of there aren't many people who can say that they have their own day. I think it's one of those things where it just shows that I love my city and my city loves me back, and that's a big, big, huge honor to have. And it's for me, it was just it still is and definitely was a absolutely cool thing to be a part of.
So do you think kind of your coming up in Pine Hills and kind of the greater Orlando area kind of had an impact on what you did playing golf as a kid?
No, see, I didn't play as a kid, so probably, yeah. I guess that made it why I didn't play. It wasn't cool to play golf. I didn't start really playing golf until my senior year at FAM. My dad tried to introduce me to the game as a kid, but I was like a 5'6" sport athlete. So golf was honestly, I just didn't have time. And to be even more truthful with you, you weren't gonna get any girls playing golf. So when you're in high school, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get a little popularity and trying to get noticed. And golf was not going to get me noticed with the ladies that I liked. So yeah, I didn't pay any attention to it, man. And but I definitely believe that everything that happens to an individual in life shapes and molds them and polishes them into the individual that they are going to become, whether that be positively or negatively. And I definitely would say that, without seeing the things I saw growing up or being in the particular situations I was in growing up, I definitely wouldn't be the individual that I am now.
Right. So if you didn't play golf as a child, what sports did you play?
Oh man, I tried to play football, but I didn't really do that until I got to college as well. I never really played basketball past like fifth grade. That wasn't it. But, played baseball the whole time, ran track the whole time, played volleyball the whole time, played soccer the whole time. Those were really my big, big, big things. Just some seasons I was playing two sports. I was definitely playing a sport every season, keeping my grades up. I just didn't have time. And it was something to kind of keep me busy and just kept me going and really enjoyed every moment of it.
Right. And you talk about that school kind of aspect that's really really important to you. I think you went to one of the coolest HBCUs in the country, besides my HBCU. You went to FAMU, which you had an amazing run there. It looks like you played a lot of football there, did a little track and field days there. Kind of tell us about your time at FAMU.
FAMU was different for me, man. I had the opportunity to be in a place where I had legacy. I had some big shoes to fill. If you've ever been to FAMU, they have this building called Foothill, which used to be the Black Hospital back in segregation days. And that's where my family was born. That's where my mom and my aunts and my uncles were all born. So knowing that, walking on the same campus that they were on. My mother was a teacher at FAM. My aunts and my uncles went to FAM. My uncle still to this day owns track and field records at FAM. He ran with Bob Hayes. There used to be this big, huge picture of him and this guy named China Doll and Bob Hayes coming out the blocks. That was in the old Gaither gym. So every time I walked in there to go do mat drills and practice, I had to walk by my uncle, kind of getting his approval of what I was doing. My grandfather was a janitor on that campus as well. You know the One of the past presidents was my mom's godfather. So just having that, I guess that pressure of understanding I had shoes to fill and I couldn't mess up.
Right.
So, the experience was definitely one of those things where I knew if I was going to go there, I had to stand out. I couldn't just be average. I couldn't be normal. And then, most importantly, when I left there, I had to make sure that I was somebody who wore, that FAMU orange and green to a whole nother level. I couldn't just be a guy who like, yeah, I went to FAM and left there and wasn't making a difference wherever I decided to go. That just wasn't going to work out.
Right. Was that always a dream to go to FAMU, or you had other schools in mind, or was like, I'm saying FAMU is the place to be?
No, to be honest with you, man, I had aspirations of going to, Hawaii for volleyball. Thought I was going to go to Pepperdine. I had offers from Drake to go run track. I had probably 15, 20 offers, and I ended up going to University of South Florida. And I left there. The coach that brought me in did what most coaches do. Oh, I'm going to be here. I'm here to stay, blah, blah, blah. And that joker was gone before I even got on campus. Um, but it was cool. I spent a year and a half at USF. I had a lot of cousins there and, met a lot of amazing friends. And that was a good start for me. And then it was just time for me to go. I transferred. The track team there wasn't really moving forward like I thought they would. The new coach that they brought in, uh, he just wasn't progressive enough for me. And I was really trying to run at a professional level, and I knew I wasn't going to do it there. So transferred to FAM, where All American team, All American relay, ran against with and against guys who ran for the Jamaican team and things like that. And it was a really amazing experience. So I got to really see and push myself to a whole nother level being there. So honestly, it was a perfect time to make that move.
Right. Do you think it kind of gave you a competitive edge, something that you use today within your golf realm?
I won't say necessarily in my golf realm. I would say, when I take off the long drive or the hat of being a competitor, and then I step into the marketing, when I step into the agent side, and I'm here trying to, broker deals and talk to people about all these plans and visions that I have. I think that's where FAM prepared me. At FAM, they always taught you that you had to do things the right way. You had to be 10 steps ahead. You had to kind of anticipate someone else's next move. You had to always put yourself in a position of power and don't be in the position of sitting there being a victim and subjected to whatever people give you. So that definitely helped me when I look at it from that standpoint. On the competitive side, I mean, if you're going to be a competitor, you're going to be a competitor. I don't think any school makes you more of a competitor than others. That's just something that you're born with, either you got or you don't have. But I definitely was prepared from a standpoint of being tough, being thick-skinned, understand that you're probably going to get a bunch of no's before you get a yes, and things like that. So definitely, fam helped me out tremendously with that part.
So you go to FAMU, you graduate 2010, if I'm correct, and
Yep.
then you say, I'm going to do this thing called World Long Drive that no one's really at the time it really heard of. It wasn't as big as it is today. Kind of what got you into kind of World Long Drive as you traveled the globe competing in these competitions?
Honestly, man, that wasn't my goal. I did a Remax World. Actually, I did a Remax Long Drive competition local qualifier my senior year at FAM with about 3 weeks left. Um, hit the ball further than everybody, but couldn't keep the ball in bounds. And I said, well, that was a lot of fun. I was going to Life University to work on my doctorate of chiropractic, and told myself I wasn't going to play any sports. I wasn't going to run track anymore. I was going to focus on my academics, become a doctor, and, kind of just live life. And, I met this guy up in Atlanta, J.R. Ross, who was a golf teacher. He was like, hey, I know we talked before. I'll work with you. I'll give you some lessons. Just come on out. And then come to find out after doing that, went to another qualifier. I think it was in Billings, Montana with this guy, Mike Dale. Won the qualifier, came back to Life. And since Life was an NAIA school, they had extra money in athletics and they sponsored me. They were like, hey, we'll send you to a few events. And I was like, where does this come from? And from there, I just got royally obsessed with the game. Mind you, I didn't play golf like that before I got there. And then they had this deal with the driving range about 3 miles down the road where you could hit unlimited golf balls for $100 a year, unlimited from sun up to sundown if you wanted to, as many as you. All
Right.
you had to do was just go there and give them your student ID, and they had you on a list, and you were good to go. And I think that was probably the biggest turning point. I think without having that unlimited access to practice balls and hitting them all day long to a point where I stopped going to class. And then, I got kicked out of school for not going to class. But then Guy Reekman, who is now the chancellor of Life, I mean, he put an entire season on his black card. He paid entry fees, he paid hotel, he paid, um, rental car, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, hey, you only get one shot at this thing. Go give it the best you got. School will be here. School's been here for years. It'll be here when you get done.
Right.
And that was probably the one thing that got me going. And I made a little bit of noise, a lot of top tens, and kind of was breaking even with the money. And unfortunately was homeless the whole time, sleeping in my car and stuff like that. And then I had another thing pop up around 2014, the beginning of 2015. My uncle decided to sponsor me, and not because I asked him to sponsor me, but because one of his friends brought it up, and he asked me, well, why wouldn't you ever ask me? I was like, one of those things where I love you too much to ask you for money.
Right. Just
And
didn't cross your mind.
yeah, and his friend asked me the simplest question in the world. He said, what's the difference between you and the number one ranked player in the world? And I was like, money. And at that time he said, I don't really believe in that, but okay. And there was something about them. They saw my work ethic. My uncle saw my work ethic. He knows my work ethic. And that was 2015 where I became the, European number one ranked player, won the European tour over there, went back 16, did the same thing. And that was kind of the thing that made it different. The crazier part of it all was I remember when I was doing that in 2015, everybody here in the States was saying, oh, those were easy victories. The guys over in Europe can't hit and all this other stuff. And then you look back at it, and the guys who I was competing against are some of the top guys in the world now.
Right.
And I was seeing them early. We were all early in our careers. And, it's just funny how sometimes being the first, being a trailblazer isn't the easiest thing in the world, because sometimes you see things that other people can't see. And it's not until it actually is long past the bell curve when they actually start to take notice of it. So, but it was definitely cool. It was cool to go on that journey and on that ride.
Right. So you've won four of them. So let's just say it's worked out quite well. As
Yeah,
far as your
four major championships is good. One world title. Not too bad. It's
Not
not too
too
shabby.
bad. Not too bad. I remember watching you during the time where you won your one in the U.S. in 2018. And it was one of the craziest kind of sessions I've ever watched as far as kind of world long drive. And if people don't know how it works, you have a grid. It's about 400 yards long. They don't even start counting the ball until you get well past 250. So you got to be able to hit the golf ball. You get like what is it, 2 minutes and 8 golf balls. And obviously they have a TrackMan. They launch your ball and they track it and how it carries. And basically, you got 2 minutes and hit 8 balls in the grid, and whoever hits it the longest wins. And if you're short or you're OB left or right, you're done. You're going home. And it's kind of really really cool to kind of see you navigate, especially with the swing that you have. For people that are familiar with it, it's kind of golf, but on a crazier level. Um, Obviously, accuracy is very important, but the dynamics and kind of complexities of the golf swing kind of tell us how you go through your swing, um, and how it makes it work for you.
For me, man, I draw a bunch of lines. I'm a visual person, so I'm always looking at lines and trying to figure out, trying to learn how to flow. Some days the draw is easy for you, some days the fade is hard, and some days it's vice versa. I only try to work with what my body has for that day. I
Right.
don't try to go into it with this notion of I'm going to overpower the golf swing. I'm going to overpower my body. I'm going to let my body take control, and I'm just going to work with what I have. And I think that goes back to, one of the biggest, I guess, battles in the history of the world is, man versus self, or human versus self. Um, and I think when you kind of get out of the way of that and you just allow life to flow, the possibilities are absolutely amazing. And I only have two swing thoughts in the entire swing. When I'm in my think box, I may have an objective and I pick my point and I do all those things. But when I take the club away, I have one swing, and then on the downswing, I have another swing. I don't have 4 and 5 swing thoughts, and I think I do a lot of drilling to keep me from having to worry about those swing thoughts. I think if you can drill 200 to 500 times a day, that'll help you get to those 10,000 that everybody's always talking about, a whole lot faster than if you're only doing 50 reps a day. So I think the big thing is, if you want to, in anything in life, being a professional, you have to put the work in. And for me, I just learned to groove my swing. It's just one of those things where time after time, I had notes on my phone in my note category in my iPhone, and I always went back to those and I always made adjustments. Go and sit and watch film of me swinging and figuring out exactly what am I doing, find a way to correspond that with the weight room and where I need to get stronger, or with my stretching, or what do I need to do with trying to become more limber, or where am I weak and where am I strong, and just really trying to find the weak links. I think the biggest part of my swing was always figuring out the things that I didn't like to do, and then continuing to do those over and over again, never doing the things that I like to do or the things that came easy, just finding a way to really fall in love with the process and find a way to find comfort in knowing that the things that I didn't like to do or the imperfections I had to find a way to almost make them perfect.
Right. And I think it really pays off, because if people don't know, we'll talk about this a little later, but your training is very important. You have very, very, very early mornings. Kind of tell us about your kind of training regimen, especially with your COVID-19 and things being socially distant. And, obviously you're not having a season in 2020, minus a few kind of select kind of events that kind of pop up here and there. But kind of tell us how your training works.
Simple, man. I go early in the morning to the gym. Nobody's in there. And we get in there for about an hour and a half. Then I leave the gym. I go walk with my pops, just to try to keep him healthy and things like that. So we do about a 3 mile walk every morning. Then I head to the golf course. I'm out there by myself, chipping, putting, just trying to get my game together. And then I go back to the gym again at night about 9 o'clock when nobody's in there again. And then I hit it again for about an hour, hour and a half. And then I do another hour walk on the treadmill. So,
Right.
I try to get anywhere from 6 to 10 miles in on my legs every day, just try to keep my legs strong, which sometimes gets a little crazy because I don't leave the gym until, you know, 11 o'clock at night. The other night, I think it was 11:30, and back in there again at 5 the next morning. But
Right.
as a student, I think you'll understand, sometimes you end up with late nights studying, or the work just doesn't get done, or your project's running over, or you had people in the group assignment and they didn't get their part to you in time. So you're still trying to get things done, but that doesn't cancel out the fact that you got an 8 a.m. class the next morning. I mean, it just is what it is. And you have to be willing just to get up and go do what needs to be done so that you can fulfill your obligation. And that's how I look at it. I think that's the difference between being a professional and someone who's just out there just kind of kicking it and chilling.
Right. So some of the things that you kind of accomplished when you won the Movie World Long Drive, you hit about 393 yards. And then for your longest drive ever, it was 459. Kind of
No, my longest drive is 483.
483.
Yeah, I don't know
Geez,
where people are
Lee.
finding 459. That must be on Wikipedia or
You
something
know
like
what
that.
it
I
is?
can't.
It's probably on your website.
And I need to change that then. That's my fault.
Well, 483 then. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So tell us about that drive right there, 483 yards. Where was it? Kind of what was the environment that happened with that drive?
No, I remember it was Denver. It was 2017. The environment, I don't know. So when I actually hit that ball, I don't think it was raining at that time. The wind was not really, it was a little downwind, but it wasn't howling. You know, it was 5 to 7 maybe. It wasn't anything crazy. I know I carried the ball 450. I know that without a shadow of a doubt. And I remember my brother was in the stands, and if you go back on the tape, he's the idiot in the background yelling "She gone" the whole time when the ball's in the air, which was kind of cool. But you know, it was something really cool. But that day was so crazy because you saw guys go home hitting the ball 470, 460. You know, career best and still going home. You know, I had a
Right.
ball that bounced out of bounds at 515, which is nuts. But it's that day was just, you know, it was a magical day for sure, 100%.
Do you have kind of a favorite story from your circuit of kind of being on the World Long Drive stage?
No, not from the World Long Drive state. Well, maybe, I guess. Probably the best one for me is winning world championships and knowing that I was going to win it. Let's see, I won on a Wednesday, I want to say it was, and I knew on Friday I was going to win it. I remember um, you know, going in there in the early rounds. And I remember calling my brother and telling him, hey, don't come. Not feeling well. My health wasn't the best at the time. And then you have to walk under this tunnel to get to the platform where we hit. So you're walking under the stage,
Right.
under stands. And when you're walking under stands, you have all these banners on both sides of past champions, you male and female. And then right before you walked onto the hitting platform, there was this blank area. And I remember the first time I did it, I walked there and I kind of, as I turned fast and I had this glimpse and it was so weird. I was like, you know, one of those things like, man, you're tripping, man.
Right.
And I was like, I walked back and I looked, I said, there ain't nothing there. I went and hit the balls. Went up for my second set and I came around that corner. I saw the glimpse again. And this time I'm walking towards it. I was like, what is that? And every time I saw it, the glimpse was literally a poster of me standing there in a pink shirt and some khaki pants, which we all know is probably one of the lamest outfits I'd ever wear. Um, and I'm standing there holding up my finger and holding up a belt. And I was like, nah. And mind you, when I'm hitting the ball, you know, that whole time, that first day, I mean, I'm winning by 20, I'm winning by 30. You know, I pretty much went undefeated. I think I lost 2 sets that entire tournament. Um, and it was in one of the sets I threw on purpose. I wasn't even trying to win the set. Um, and just knowing every single day that I was going to win that tournament. That was probably, some people say it's you know, cocky or arrogant to say that, but I saw it in my dreams the entire week. I remember calling my brother and was like, hey, I don't care how much it costs, you better get out here because
Right.
you're going to miss something
You
that
gonna miss
you don't
something.
ever want to miss. And yeah, and he was like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, I'm just telling you, I promise you.
Right.
Is I just knew it was one of those things that was just God put me in that place where it was, that's just the way it was going to be, you know. And it was cool. It was cool. Like I remember telling people down to the time I knew exactly how Moose was going to lose. I didn't know who I was going to win, you know, who I was going to beat, but I knew how that last ball was going to go. I was like, I knew the ball was going to be blocked hard right, and even if it was in, it still wasn't going to win.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy, and that's exactly what he did. But you know, and that's a different place to know that you're walking in like these steps that are ordered. Is the freakiest place in the world to be. It really is.
I don't think a whole bunch of people know that story, but I think it's kind of really cool to kind of just again practice on your training and what you prepared for. So when you step up for a competition, it's just like practice. It's no real difference. Now, something that is a little different in your practice compared to your kind of competitive edge is your fashion game. Now, I will say you're one of the best, well dressed people on the circuit from the shoes to the socks. to the pants, the craziest shirts, biggest belt buckles. Kind of what goes into your style on the World Long Drive stage?
For me, it was a little different, man. I remember the first time I was going to talk to a group of kids. I had some clothes on my shirt, and that's how I used to dress, working on just trying to be professional. And I thought about it. I was like, man, if I was one of these kids, I wouldn't want to listen to nobody dress like this. And, playing sports, playing football and stuff like that, if you look at the NFL this week, what they're doing with the My Cause thing, everybody's got their cleats customed out and stuff like that. I've been customing out my golf shoes since 2014, 2013. I don't think I've really worn a pair of stock shoes. I may have one pair of white shoes, but everything else is customed all the way out. I got some stuff that I'll probably wear here soon at the dining resorts that I'm not showing or telling anybody about. But that's always just been a way of self-expression. It's been a way of making it cool. Clothing is, I think, bringing that to the sport, and it'll show people that it's okay to express yourself. It's okay to be comfortable in your own skin, and there's a professional way of doing it. You don't have to be the guy or the girl who's just doing some insane and weirdness. You can wear what you wear. It's still legal in golf clothing and everything, following the guidelines and the rules, but you're just doing it in your own way. For me, I'm super super blessed to have a relationship with Charlie Schaefer. And Adrian Cass over at Grayson, man, they keep me with the best clothes in the world. I absolutely love the Grayson clothing, man. My boy Carlos, he he does an amazing job customizing my shoes. He's absolutely awesome. There's a guy up in New England, Sab One. He does a great job as well. We got a few people on my customizing team. As far as the belts go, man, that's House of Fleming right there in Atlanta all day long, man. Those guys do. They make some of the sickest belts. A lot of the guys on the tour wear them. DJ, Ricky, Justin Thomas, Phil Mickelson, all those guys wear the belts, and the belts are just absolutely kind of like the cherry on top of the whole outfit. So
Right.
it's a whole collaboration of so many different things that just all make it work.
Do you have kind of like a go-to outfit? We know we're easy seeing you in the pink. That's, I would guess, say I guess the standard pink kind of breast cancer awareness pink. But what's the go-to outfit if you had to step on a stage tomorrow, driving range tomorrow, do an exhibition for group kids? What are you wearing?
Oh man, it just depends on what I feel. Finals is always going to be the pink. You're always going to see me in pink in the finals. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You can chalk that up. But to be honest with you, man, it's all going to depend on the shoes. What shoes am I wearing? And then the outfit just kind of goes with the shoes. So the shoes are what's going to make it. I've got something ridiculous and fly, I'll rock that. But we'll see. I got some stuff. I mean, you'll see some stuff from me here soon. I'll leave it at that. You'll
There
see
we
some stuff
go.
from me here soon on the shoe game.
There we go. So kind of speaking of kind of celebrity events, in Orlando, you had the super cool opportunity, maybe I want to say about 2 years ago, to go down to Vegas and be a part of the show that Golf Channel made called Shot Makers. Kind of how was that experience? Literally making shots on a top golf circuit.
Yeah, Shot Makers was cool, man. It honestly was. I got a chance to hang out with some really amazing people. Everybody on that cast was really, really cool. Most importantly, got to hang out with some people that honestly I didn't know. I never would have met and really had I don't think I would have met them to have a conversation, but they were all extremely interesting, and still talk to them to this day, which is super cool. Chad Pfeiffer was there. I see him every year at the Diamond Resorts. Chelsea Pelosa, Tanya Terry. I can go down the list of people, man. Everybody there was just really, really, really cool. I got to hang out with my boy Shanks and his brother, who's an ex-long driver and stuff. But that show was, for what it was, man, it was absolutely an amazing time that I really, really enjoyed. I thought they were going to bring it back, but it didn't happen. But that was okay. It was like most good things in life; they don't last very long. So you
Right.
just enjoy them while you got them in front of you.
And then you kind of transition, you do one crazy shot, and then you just get to do something that no one thinks is really possible. You go to Canada, and Avis asks you, hey, can you hit a golf ball across the Niagara Falls? And you say yes. Tell us about kind of that experience being the first person to kind of do that and just do something that's kind of really wacky and kind of really interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't my idea, to be honest with you. The people at Avis and the people at Scratch, they approached me because we did the whole "Is it drivable" campaign, and they were trying to figure out what was the next step in that campaign. And honestly, I was scared to death. It was, you're carrying the ball 350, 360. You have that mist. When we did actually end up shooting it, the wind was in my face, which I was not a fan of that. It was like, just make it as hard as you want to. Why don't you? It was raining. It was just mucky and nasty. But on the backside of it, there was a lot of controversy. Unfortunately, it was within the long drive community. There were a lot of people saying that it was fake and it wasn't real. Someone threw the ball, and that was a lot of people who were just angry and upset that they didn't have the opportunity to do that. Then it was, oh, there's a bunch of lone drivers that could do that, and I was like, well, that's fine, that's cool. Um, but they didn't. The person who did it was me. The only person who has ever done it, and probably the only person who will ever do it, is me. But most importantly, the first person to do it is me. There's a toxicity within this world that is absolutely ridiculous, and quite a bit of it, for a bunch of reasons. But one of the major reasons is being one of the few um, black people within the sport, definitely being the most notable and being the most consistent person. So, and essentially, I was the only black person in the sport,
Right,
and that led a lot of people to think that they could drive me out of the sport by trying to bully me or trying to do all these things. And I had to explain to them, I'm not going nowhere. You'd be
right.
better off leaving yourself. That's just not going to happen. And, I think the thing that kind of made the whole Niagara thing the worst part for me was when I did the podcast probably about a year and a half ago now with these white guys. And in their podcast, they were like, we thought that would have gotten more play than it did. And I think one of the reasons why it didn't get more play than it did is because of the fact that I am a black male, and they didn't want to show that black excellence and that positivity.
Right,
Even in the golfing world, it didn't get as much play as it should have. If John Daly had done it, or Kyle Berkshire now had done it, it probably would have been the biggest feat in the world, and they would have made it, all these other things. And because it was me, they wanted to try to sweep it under the rug as if it was something that did not exist. And that's, that really says a lot about how the world is to this day. The fact that we are unable to show respect to amazing accomplishments, regardless of what we may personally feel of the individual. But you have to give respect where respect is due, and that's one of the things as a society. I don't think we're there yet, unfortunately.
and it's funny you go into that topic because I kind of wanted to talk about this kind of diversity and inclusion thing. You've kind of been on the forefront. Um, I guess I should say on a public stance when you win events. Typically, um, champions per se have kind of a set script or something that they prepare kind of to say, if I won this, if you hit a ball, 300, 400 yards, this is what I'm going to say, blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. You are kind of off the cuff. What are you feeling in that moment? And you just say it, which I think for a lot of people, especially me, being a black male in the industry of golf, it's very refreshing to hear. I think um, it helps a lot. So, kind of, what are your thoughts on diversity and inclusion? I know you've had the opportunity to kind of pen an article up this past summer with Golf Digest. Full disclosure, I do work for Golf Digest. By the time this episode will come out, I will be with them in the new year. So, I can't say too much about it. I can say prior to me being a part of that team, I think it was an amazing article. But being black in a white man's sport, kind of tell us how it came about and your thoughts on diversity.
Um, so I think that diversity and inclusion doesn't exist at all. I made that very clear at the PGA merchandise. This is probably the best example. There was nobody in the golf industry that even took note of of the accomplishments of minority or black people in this game. I think that a lot of times we confuse the word minorities and black. In the game of golf, minorities is anybody who is not between the age of, I'd say, 22 and maybe 50 or 60. That's a white male. Women are minorities in this game. Asians are minorities. Hispanics are minorities. Pacific Islanders are minorities. I can go down the list of minorities as far as golf is concerned. But Black people is where we get the drop off. You look at your major OEMs; they don't have any Black influencers on their Instagram catalogs. Let's take Swoosh Team completely out because Nike's an extremely Black brand, and
Right.
we all know that. But when you take the Swoosh staff out of play, really look at how many Black people are being promoted through social networks as far as influencers of any of these other brands. And when you look at, National Sunglass Day and Pet Day and Women in Golf Day and all this other stuff, they're being recognized all over. But when Black History Month comes, people get really quiet.
Right.
The best example that I can give to people is simple. In 2020, earlier this year, Kobe Bryant dies on, I believe, the 26th of January. I remember it
Hmm.
was a Sunday after the PGA show, whatever that date may have been. I remember going to a Magic game. And I remember the Waste Management was that very next week. They had just left the Farmers, I believe it was the event out in Cali, because that's when Tiger, they had talked about people coming off.
Right.
Um, and they put the flag on the final day at 8 and 24 and all this other stuff. And everybody's got Mamba mentality and all these other things, on their shoes at the Waste Management and stamped on their wedges. And a couple of days after that was the beginning of Black History Month. There was not a mention of Charlie Sifford, Ted Rose, Calvin Pete. I can go down the list of them. Thank you for your contributions to this game. Thank you for the growing of this game and blah, 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 blah. And it's funny, we can be celebrated as gladiators, as Kobe Bryant was to most people. He was a gladiator. He was an entertainer in a ring. Um, and for some reason, we are not respected as our contributions. When people look at Kobe, they think about the 60-point final game. They think about the championships. But that's not who and what Kobe was. That's not what made Kobe a GOAT. Kobe was really a GOAT after he left the game of basketball, when he
Right.
started working on the things with the WNBA and making sure that women were paid respectfully for what the work that they were doing and the stuff that he was doing with his daughter, and how he became more of a family man. And those are the things that made him a GOAT, the things with the short films and so on and so forth. It was, his play on the field on the court was the thing that kind of set him up to be a GOAT. But when he retired, it was the things he did afterwards that really solidified him as a GOAT. And the golfing world forgets the GOATs that we have. They forget the fact that Calvin Pete held the accuracy record for how long, continuously. The fact that Lee Elder was the first Black person to play in the Masters. The fact that Charlie Sifford, actually the fact that the first Black person to really play in the PGA event was Joe Louis. And the reason why they started Q School was because of Joe Louis, and the fact that people defecated in a hole so that they wouldn't be able to get their ball out. And I can go down the list of things. And unfortunately, the golfing world, including the PGA of America, did not care. That's what made that Golf Digest article so powerful, was they took the courage to go unfiltered. They
Right.
decided to say, okay, we're going to let you talk and we're actually going to listen. They were very, and at that time, a lot of people were doing watered down interviews. Obviously I've been yelled at and screamed at about my comments about Hero Varner and Tiger Woods. But at the end of the day, how they act as if George Floyd was the first person who was killed on tape. Um, you know, there was nothing different about George Floyd than there was with Trayvon Martin, with Tamir Rice, with, Sandra Bland. I can go down the list. Unfortunately, there's 67 names that we know of. And they never felt the need to speak out then. They didn't speak out in the beginning. They spoke out after everyone else had spoken out. And for me, that was the biggest slap in the face.
Right.
Because in the golfing world, when you really look at what's going on, your executives at all of these major corporations have golf memberships, whether it is that they enjoy the game or they're just using it for the networking. When you look at your Oakmonts, when you look at your Augustas, when you go look at all these prestigious clubs that are out there are very few Black members. So the people who are running these businesses are members there. The people who are running these corporations are members there. The people who are making the honestly, who are really making the power plays and the moves in the world are there. And if they're not interacting with people who look like us, then how are they making moves that affect us?
Good
If
point.
our voice isn't heard, if we don't get them to understand, and the worst part of it all is so often we're told when we go to places, oh, well, we're giving you exposure, as if our value means absolutely nothing. And the one thing that I continuously tell kids is don't believe that. Don't believe that they're giving you exposure, because the truth of the matter is exposure is a two-way street. They're exposing you to something, but you're also exposing them to your culture. You're exposing them to the fact that you're not the stereotypes that they believe that you are, that you're an individual just like they are, that you have value just like they do, and that it's not one of those things where, oh, this is my good deed for the day, and that you're some poor kid who just is not going to make it without this one moment of walking on this grass at this golf course. That's not the case. Just like going to that golf course can open your eyes to the possibilities of life and change your outlook on what life can be, them interacting with a kid who's from your area can change their outlook as well. So it's definitely a two-way street. And I think that's the thing that has to change, is that we have to find a way to have a little more bargaining power. We have to hold ourselves at a higher standard where we're just not going to accept less than. A lot of times in life, Black people have always been subjected to something's better than nothing. Well, if I work 40 hours, I better be paid for 40 hours.
Hmm.
I'm not going to go work 40 and you tell me, well, I'm going to pay you for 20. Well, you paid my man over here for 40. Yeah, well, something's better than nothing. No, actually, I don't know.
Right.
So that's the difference.
Interesting. I think the diversity and kind of inclusion topic, whatever you want to call it, as far as the golf industry, we could just have a whole nother podcast just about that itself. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to move on, because me and you, we'll sit here and talk about it all day. But kind of transitioning back into the world long drive kind of atmosphere. Um, do you think that kind of gives inspiration to people who don't play the typical round of golf, kind of going to these top golf venues and kind of seeing golf in a different light?
I hope so. Um, you know, Top Golf is a wave of the future, whether people want to accept it or not. If the blue blood golfers hate it, well, I don't know what to tell them. That's going to be the way of getting people in. Top Golf is the Planet Fitness of golf. It's the judgment-free zone. 90% of people who go there suck, and they're laughing about it. They're having a great time. There's no stuffy people judging them and looking at them when they hit the ball and they shank it or whatever. I think, there's this excitement about hitting the ball far, and if that's what gets people into this game, if that's what gets people playing the game. And I think by playing the game of golf, you start to really see the flaws that you have as a human being, and you are made aware of those flaws, and then you have the ability to work on them if you so choose to. And that's the beauty of this game. There's no hiding. I hope that maybe long drive is an avenue to getting people into this game where they can learn so much more about themselves. Um, who knows? But I just think the game of golf has so much more to offer than people will really understand. There's so much you can learn and grow from this game, and anything that's getting people with a club in their hand, even as a recreational standpoint, I think that helps, because golf helps, build self-confidence, but it also helps you understand empathy, care, and compassion towards others as well.
Right. And that's something I think you value as a whole. And it's something that's clearly been kind of displayed over your career when you won the Volvic World Long Drive Champion back in 2018. You said on air in front of national television, I'm donating, this purse back to my high school. And clearly, without a doubt said it, hey, here are the scholarships that I'm donating to my high school. If you want to donate, here's the link. Let's help these kids out. Could I think from just my eyes, you're looking at it long term it's not about me. It's about the next generation and what can I do to help them. Kind of talk about your philanthropy, kind of what your foundation, and what your aim and your goal for that organization is.
Yeah, definitely. So when it came to, the scholarships, man, that was a part of me winning. I still have that note in my travel bag from where I knew the things I was going to have to do with the money that I won. And that was just a big, huge part of it. As far as my foundation is concerned, the goal is to try to get it where a kid from the time they're in elementary school all the way until they're high, and then, well, until they leave high school has an opportunity to be touched by what my foundation is doing. I can't complain about what's going on in my community or the lack of growth in my community if I'm not actively trying to make a change in my community. And too many times people think that they have to be lotto rich to make a change. And that's one of the difference I see between the black communities and the non-black communities. A lot of middle class, white people understand that the taxes are going to go anyway. You're going to have to give money to taxes. So if you do things that are a write off and you sow seeds into your community, you can make your community a better place rather than trying to clinch onto it, like somebody's just who has no understanding of where it's going. If you give that money to the government, it's going wherever it's going. But if you take a piece of that, if you take 25% of that, and if everybody puts it back in their own community, they have the opportunity to get those write-offs, which obviously is going to bring the taxes down. But
Right.
they have a chance of changing their own community because they know exactly where that dollar is going within their own community. That's the part of getting power back into your community. So finding that part is huge. The other side of it is on the golfing side. Making sure that people like yourself don't have to fight the same fights I fought when I got into this industry. My road in golf has been a horrible one, honestly, man. It's been a lot of uphill battles. It's never been easy. And I'm okay with that. I understand that the first person through the door catches all the bullets, but I have to make sure that I catch enough of them where you guys don't have to catch any of them. And if that's the legacy that I leave when it's all said and done, I'm okay with that. If I can allow and motivate you guys to move forward and open up doors, even if I'm abrasive and people say, "Oh man, I can't stand this guy. He's off his rocker. He's aggressive. He's whatever." Okay, well then that means they won't listen to me. But then when they see you, they say, "Well, he's a milder version, so we'll accept this guy,"
Right.
and that's also okay, and that's cool. If that's another way of opening doors, I'm fine with that. But the respect level has to always be there. And, anytime you look at life, your life really isn't for you. Everything that you have on this earth has really been because of people who have come before you, whether it be your parents, your grandparents, or other people in your industry who made sacrifices and opened doors and kicked down barriers so that you can continue to move forward. I played around the golf with Calvin Pete probably 4 months before he died. And I remember he grabbed me and he looked me in the eyes and he was like, "Promise me that you won't ever quit this game." And I was like, "All right, Mr. B." And I'm getting out the car and he grabbed my arm and yanked my arm. And he looked at me and said, "No, promise me you won't ever quit this game." And a couple months later, he was gone. And to me, I've always looked at that as that was him passing the torch to me. I've had
Right.
conversations with Lee Elder where Lee Elder told me straight up, "You got a job to do, and I don't plan on you making friends while you're doing the job. Get the job done." I
And
was like,
that's something that you've raised several times, kind of every year. I would say for the past couple of years, there's kind of this diversity and inclusion kind of meeting at
"Hmm,
the PGA show, and I know one of your good friends, Roger Steele, um, recorded a video of you kind of giving your remarks on kind of when they go around the room and they say who the stakeholders here, and the I guess the higher ups, I should say, in the room of the golf industry that really have a voice. Um, and I remember I don't think I was there that year. I don't think I was there that year, but they passed kind of the mic to you, the virtual mic, I say to you, and you were very poignant. And, they had leadership from, all the top golf organizations in the world in one room. And you basically had no filter and you said what needed to be said. And I want to say I appreciate that. I wish it would happen more, and people wouldn't be afraid of the repercussions, kind of to say on what it has on your career. Because I think on the long term, point of things, it really has an impact on people.
Yeah, the thing you have to understand, man, is you have to understand that life is finite, and you have to realize that you're either going to go out on your feet or on your knees. And if you're a person of faith, then you believe that God owns everything. And if God owns everything, then everything that we have here is on lease. You don't own it. You can't take it with you when you die. It's still here. So if I believe that I'm doing God's work, and I only do things that I'm led to do. I don't do anything that I want to do. I do things that I'm led to do, and if God's leading me to do something, then I'm gonna be okay. God's gonna make sure I'm good. So I don't concern myself with the repercussions because there aren't any. It may seem like I'm losing in the short term, and that's fine. As you know, on my Instagram, I'm always posting stuff that I said 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years
Right,
ago. And I remember this one guy posted on me. He commented on one of my stories, and he was like, you've grown into a fine champion. Amazing work. And I said, no, I haven't grown into anything. I said, just because I'm a champion now, you can hear me. But the
right.
stuff I've been saying is the same
It's
stuff.
been saying it since you got started. You just
Yeah,
kind of got a bigger platform to say it, and people had to
yeah.
listen to you.
Yeah, and before you all weren't listening to me, I guess because I didn't have the championships, and to you all that didn't mean anything. So
Right,
it's different, man. And I understand in the corporate world, you definitely everybody has to put food on the table. But I've been at the worst scenarios in life, man. I've been sleeping in the car. I've been homeless. I didn't know where my next meal was going to come from. I remember walking to a golf course down the busiest, area in Kennesaw, Georgia, with golf clubs in my hand because I wasn't going to miss practice because I didn't have gas to put in my car. And I was like, hey, it is what it is. I know I can go hit these golf balls for free, so I'm gonna walk.
right,
And that's just the way it was. But I've seen that other side, and I don't have any fear. So if that means that, this run is short or whatever it may be, I'm fine. My whole thing is, what is the impact that I'm going to make while I'm here? How am I going to make your life better? Long after I'm gone, will people still remember me? In 30 years or 40 years after your career is gone to where it is, they may ask you who are one of your big influences. And I may be dead and gone, but then they'll be like, hey, this guy changed a lot for me. And that's what it's really all about. I've lived an amazing life. I've accomplished amazing things in this golf industry against all odds. And now it's at a point where, okay, I have to make sure, I've done everything I can do for me. Now, what can I do for others? And that's the biggest part of it all.
right. I think you lead into a great point, kind of saying where your life has kind of gone. But before we wrap up, you recently, and I know you can't say too much about it, but you recently took a trip to DC for the Capital Long Drive Classic. Kind of
Maybe
tell us about that. He's kind of quiet, folks, but I know
amnesia. I've
amnesia.
got amnesia.
He's
Yeah,
blacking out, folks, but
I got nothing. I don't remember.
he's got none. He's lost his train of
I
thought.
wasn't there. Wasn't me.
Might have been his twin. I don't know. But
Might have
if you
been. I
if
don't
you
know.
if you want to check that out, just stay glued to our good friends at Golf Channel on the 17th of December. You'll see what happens if he shows up in DC. If he wasn't there, we'll see what happens. But we don't know. I'm excited to see what happens. It's been floating around on the socials.
Yeah, I know. I know. I heard it was a great event. I know Justin Harrison and his crew at My Brother's Birdies. They did an amazing job putting together an event. They had a co-chair with the APGA who did a kids clinic, sponsored by Lexus. Lexus was there. It was a really actually my golf DMV podcast was there as well. It was just a collaboration of a lot of people. Volvic was a part of that as well. It was a great event on paper. We'll see what it looks like in real life. I don't know. I wasn't there.
I don't know. He wasn't there. Maybe if you come
No.
talk to him after that day, he may say something different if he was there. I don't know, guys. We'll never know. But
No.
before we let you go, you're big on social, and something the things that I've noticed the last couple of years following you. You kind of do these motivational Monday series that every Monday morning you get up early and you post a message on your Twitter and your Facebook and your Instagram, kind of giving some people some positive thoughts of the week. Kind of tell us where that came from. And there's this really cool phrase that you use at the end of every kind of motivational Monday series is good people. Where did that come from? And how did that all come about?
You have to believe that people are good at nature, good at heart, and sometimes people need to hear that they're good people. There's too many times in life where that whole thought process of, well, if enough people say it, it has to be true. That depends on who you're around. If you're around enough bad people, they're going to tell you that you're bad, even if you are good. If you're around a lot of people who are lost or confused, you're going to get that type of distorted perception of who you may be. So, you have that ability to control who you are. But the motivational Mondays, man, they just started from really looking at the things I posted in the past that came up on my Facebook and said, man, how can I turn this into something? I know where I was. I know what I was thinking at this time. And obviously with hindsight being 2020, just trying to get people to understand the lessons I learned throughout this journey and how deep, how dark, how bad things can be, and understanding that that's all a part of the plan. That's all a part of where you're supposed to go to get where you're trying to become. And it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be, sugar plumps and fairies the whole way. Life is hard, man. Everybody, I don't care if you're Diddy and you have all that money, or if you're Jay-Z and Beyonce, they have bad days too. And people seem to think that money is the answer to it all. And it's
It's
not.
really not.
I tell people all the No, I tell people all the time, you have everything you need every morning that you wake up to accomplish whatever it is you're supposed to do. And if you don't think you have it, then you're looking at the wrong things.
Right.
And it's just, if money is your major goal, then you have the tools you need to get money. And if you don't use them, then that's your fault. It's no one else's fault. So for me, man, it's just, I just try to give people the helping hand. I try to give people the motivation that I was looking for when I was in that position. I think that's the biggest thing you can do to make a change in this world is think about where you were when things weren't great. And then try to reach down and help people who may be in that exact same position, find a way to motivate them, let them know, and it takes a different type of vulnerability. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy, but it's not saying that I'm perfect by any means, but I I I've been there. I've seen how bad things can get. I did this one motivation Monday motivation. It was a little dark. People got upset at me. I was like, man, if you haven't thought about killing yourself, then I said, then you ain't been on the right road. You're like, oh man, you
Right.
can't say that. I was like, but no, it's the truth. I mean,
It's truth.
there are a
Everybody's
lot of
thought it.
times. Yeah, I mean, there are times when you're going down a path, man. You're like, man, this thing sucks. Like this is and it's just one door closing after another, after another, after another. And you're just like, I don't think that this is the way it's supposed to go. Or I think it'd be better if I wasn't here, and whatever the case may be. But then the true blessing in that is you don't do it. And I think a lot of times in life we miss out on the miracle because we think that the miracle is, the two loaves of bread and one fish. Sometimes the miracle is just making it through the day to get to the next one. It's sometimes that's the biggest miracle because now you get to the next day and you don't know what that next day could be. That's when you could have gotten that offer from Golf Digest. That could be when Max Adler calls you and says, "Hey, we want you to have a full position here."
Right.
But if you never make it to that next day, you don't know. You have no clue where it could end up. So that's sometimes the miracle is it may seem small, but it's so huge at the same time.
Well, folks, you heard it from him and not me. But before we go, I like to always do this thing with all my guests before we close out the interview. I call it the Fast Five. We're gonna need five quick questions, and
All
give me
right.
the first answer that comes to your mind. And I'll give you the five questions, and then we'll go from there. First question: favorite golf course?
Favorite golf course for me would have to be. All right, I'm gonna go with Punta Espada in the Dominican Republic.
I haven't heard of that one before. Seems like a
It's
fun
really
one.
nice.
Seems like a
It's really
fun one.
nice.
Here's a
My
wacky
second
one.
one, my second one would have been Brohof Slot in Sweden.
Ah,
Yeah, I don't have it here.
no.
Oh,
Ah,
I give you my third one would be here. My third one would be Sage Valley. Sage Valley would
okay.
be my third one.
Good
Okay.
one. Good one.
Yeah.
Okay. What's an unusual fact that people don't know about you?
I'm a biochemist by trade. I've got a double major in biology and chemistry with a minor in math from where the Heights on Seven Hills in Florida, at Tallahassee, Florida A&M University. One time for the Rattlers, you know what it is. You
Perfect.
want to say anything? You want to say anything?
Perfect.
Huh? Huh?
Per-
What? Anything?
what's your what's your dream foursome?
I've already played it.
Dead or alive?
I've already played it.
And what was the foursome?
It was me, my uncle Julius Irvin, George Gervin, Artist Gilmore, Calvin Pete. So we actually had the fivesome. I've
That
already played
works.
it.
That works.
Yeah.
That works. What is your favorite pre-match food?
Oxtails, rice, and peas if I can find it. But most times in long drive, we're in these rural American places, so island food's hard to find.
And if you had to describe your life in one word, what would it be?
Same one I gave in the Golf Channel interview. Miracle.
Good,
Miracle. That's it.
good, good word. Well, Maurice, that's all the time that we have. Most importantly, where can the good people find you on social media?
Oh man, good people, good people. Y'all know where you can find me, man. Maurice Allen 360 on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter. I don't have a Snapchat because I don't be out there snapping. I don't do that. I don't do that. No. But Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That's where you can find me. Maurice
And
Allen 360. You can also find me on the internet, MauriceAllen360.com and MA360Foundation.org.
I was about to say, if people want to give to your foundation, where can they go? But you already gave it to them.
Bam.
Done. Well, Maurice, it's a privilege and a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast, and especially with this crazy schedule that we've all been under. It's a privilege. Thanks for being a great friend and a great mentor to me, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime soon.
All right, man. Stay safe out there, man. Wear your mask, young man.
Always,
Okay.
always,
There it is.
always.
All good, man.
Maurice Allen is an incredible guy. I hope you enjoyed the interview with him. After we were done recording, we really sat there for another 20 minutes to 30 minutes and just caught up on life and the golf industry as a whole. Some of the stuff that you didn't get to hear on the episode. But I would definitely stay connected with him. He's got some big things coming up soon that you definitely don't want to miss. I'll link all of his social media handles in the description below, where you can find his foundation, just more about him, where you can find his videos that are all over the internet and see how his golf swing is really unique. You definitely want to check that out. Next week, Abby Parsons drops by the podcast, so you don't want to miss that. Make sure you subscribe and you get ready, because she's got a bunch going on and she's got a great story and interesting career about her, and you don't want to miss that episode. So Abby Parsons on the show next week. Check out my other athletics podcast called Talk of the Shore. It's an athletics-based podcast with my good friend Raylan Warlaw, and we sit down with the coaches and the players of Maryland Eastern Shore Athletics and get to hear their stories off the field of play and behind the jersey and get to know them on a personal level. So definitely check that out. Just look up the hashtag TalkShore or Talk of the Shore podcast. And connect with me on social media. I'm at Langston Frazier on Twitter. Let me know who you want to hear from this season on the podcast. All you have to do is use the hashtag TLFSPod, and I'll see if I can get that guest on the show. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and rate, and most importantly, don't forget to leave a 5-star review and share the podcast. You can find the Langston Frazier Show podcast on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Google, Anchor, along with a bunch of other platforms. So subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts. Just search up the hashtag TLFSPod or the Langston Frazier Show. And until next time, I'm your host, Langston Frazier. Stay safe, stay healthy, practice safe social distancing, wear a mask, and until next time, I'll see you back here for another episode of The Langston Frazier Show.